If you're listening to Psych with Mike because you believe in the quality psychology information that you hear on this program, then do things to help us out. Go to YouTube and subscribe to the Psych with Mike channel. Go to Twitter and subscribe to @PsychWithMike. Go to Facebook, and also now go to TikTok @PsychWithMike. So go ahead and subscribe to all of those different ways of being able to stay connected to the show. But most importantly, go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and a comment. That is really, really beneficial. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.
We'll do the one you like best when we have the least energy, which should be at the end of the workday.
Is that a Rudy Giuliani reference?
Could be.
Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library.
Let me take off my mic.
We're spoofing. Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Hello.
So I think we've become a little too comfortable with
Cavalier.
Having the hot mic recording just a little bit of banter before we...
You are in control of that. I trust you to use discretion.
To use discretion, and I don't.
Uh-oh.
So that's on me.
Well, then I'm just being me. So
I'm responsible for
be
that.
Be that as it may.
Yeah. So we were discussing a topic that had recently occurred in the news, which was that Mr. Rudy Giuliani was caught in a compromising position with an actress who apparently worked for Sacha Baron Cohen on his new movie, his new Borat movie. Right. And now Rudy is backpedaling, saying that what was caught was not...
Is a strong term. He's saying he understood very quickly that it was a setup and called the police and played along until it was apparent what was going on.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone with his astute legal history, which he has a really astute legal history.
Yes.
That could be an honest statement for him.
Well, and we just recently did a whole show on existential psychology, which I'm not sure that will come out before this one.
Right?
But
who's in charge? Who will make that decision?
The person in charge doesn't always track those things chronologically.
Okay.
But the whole foundation of that is taking personal responsibility for the things that you do, even when you don't like your options. And sometimes when I hear these stories that just really, really, really strain credibility, I'm like, it would be easier for you to just say, you know what, she was pretty, I did it, it probably wasn't right, we didn't do anything, it's not a big deal, she's an adult, so what?
Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah. Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata. We had this conversation.
We did. That was in the one that might not air before this one.
Okay, all right.
So one of the things that...
just trying to be happy.
We are going to try and be happy. That I have heard a lot about, both because it is a big deal on the university campus where I teach, but also because I've seen more and more references to this in, literature and in quasi-scientific articles that have come out, is this idea of positive psychology. And so I sent this to you, and you said, I don't think I know a lot about that.
Right.
But, to me, when I look at the information on positive psychology, I'm like, okay, I don't know that this is necessarily a different brand of psychology. It might be a different emphasis.
Yeah.
Would you say that's fair?
Well, I would say that's fair in terms of my understanding of it. Maybe I have an inadequate understanding of it. But to me, it's kind of like saying, my grandma's dying and I'm really sad and upset. And you say, as the therapist, well, don't worry, be happy. Mm-hmm. Think of the good things that are going to be in your life. You can go have an ice cream cone this afternoon. To me, that's rather shallow and unrealistic. But I do accept that you can build a case, not using specific examples, but looking at patterns and rhythms in someone's life that says when you lean into the positive more than the negative, your life becomes less burdened. And you can have more joy if you take the time to experience it and process it. And that's the trick, processing. Are you aware in the immediate moment, or are you functioning as an automaton in response to scripts that have been given to you by others? And are you making choices? And are those choices positive choices? So if that's the foundation for positive psychology, I can embrace it. But if we're talking specific examples of here's a negative experience and you slather on a little positive coloration, I would say no, that's not going to get you where you need to go.
Well, obviously Martin Seligman is a person that I've heard of.
Yeah.
So I mean, to the extent that he has been one of the most ardent promoters of this, I have heard of him, and I've heard good things about him. So for me, there are a couple of things about positive.
Well, but reading the article that you sent me
Yeah.
in preparation for this conversation, I mean, that's what he's saying. The same thing that I just said. He's talking about a global approach or a global understanding. He's not winnowing it down to a conversation of I'm in pain right now, my stomach hurts. He's saying,
Right.
if you have a global approach to life that has a positive foundation, if you surround yourself with people that love you and that you enjoy and respect, you're going to be happier and life is going to be better
Right.
than if you're trapped in an environment with people that you don't respect and enjoy.
Sure.
And so then you can make the choice once you see that to say, I need to get out of this pattern and get over in that pattern.
And for whatever reason, it seems like the last several years, I've had many more clients come to me to work through grief than I did before. And I don't know if that's, sometimes I think that you just get to a point in your...
Well, that's what Carl Rogers said. Carl Rogers said, I've discovered that once I work through something in my own life,
Yeah.
it's as if someone sent all my clients
Right.
a telegram saying,
Yeah.
hey, let's talk about this.
And I think you maturate, and then whether that's the universe is responding to your maturational process or you're projecting that, I don't know. But it seems
If you
odd
build
that
it,
those
they
things,
will come.
Yeah. And what
That's a reference I'm not sure that you got.
yeah, that was to a baseball movie, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Kevin Costner, I think, was in
I
that,
believe he
but
was.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What I say to people that are working through that is there is a real biological reason why we experience grief. And the biological reason is so that when you process it, you feel better afterwards. But we are conditioned to
suppress
believe
it.
that if we, that number one,
don't feel it. Yeah.
right, big
Get
boys
over
don't
it.
cry.
Yeah.
And number two, if you feel better after a loss, that is somehow disrespectful to the memory
Yeah.
of the person that you lost, which is ridiculous. There's that is the most ridiculous thing.
But that's
that ever,
like grandma dies, and you say to the family meeting afterwards when everybody goes back to the house and they're having coffee and cake and stuff, getting a sugar high, and you say, well, I'm glad she's not in pain anymore. And then they all attack you and say, well, you didn't love her.
yeah,
Otherwise, you'd be racked with grief. And you're saying, well, but I'm finding something positive to hold on to in my grief.
and even if that doesn't happen at the wake afterwards, if you just are able to process your grief in a timely manner, and at the end of that you feel better and you feel relieved, that's not only okay, that's biologically why we have the mechanism of grief.
So I don't know if it's
Wired into us.
positive psychology or not, but I spent a lot of years talking to people about you need to feel it. You need to label it. Oh, this is sadness. This is grief. This is happiness. This is joy. And you need to externalize it. You need to put the words to it and say them out loud. And I would say, especially if you're dealing with something repressive like anger, you need to learn gradations. I'm fine, I'm rageful. It doesn't work.
Right.
And learn to say, I'm irritated, I'm miffed, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm rageful, whatever the gradations are that you can identify. And when you are feeling them, you need to recognize, oh, my body's telling me, look, feel my chest is tight, I can't breathe, I'm choking, I feel like there's pressure in my throat, I'm flooding with adrenaline, I must be angry. And then you say that out loud. Even if you're in a car by yourself, you feel it, you label it, you externalize it, and that helps burn it out so that it goes away. If you don't do that, you swallow it in. That's when your throat is tight and your chest is tight and you're swallowing to keep from bursting out. Then you hold it inside and it rots.
Right.
And you get worse.
Right. So if we are promoting this message of give yourself the opportunity to be able to feel better and that that's okay, is that positive psychology? Would you say that's positive psychology? Or because what I'm trying to wonder is, or what I am wondering is, why was there this need for me? Aren't all of us practicing positive psychology? Were we all focused on the morose and just telling everybody, oh, well, you should feel horrible because clearly you're a victim? I don't think we were. I think everybody was practicing.
I think we're concerned about
psychology is positive.
I think caring about and for people and helping them is positive, if that's what you call psychology. But I think as human beings, we want to put labels on things and put them in a box. And I think that people in our culture are conditioned to take strong emotions and hide them. Because society doesn't know what to do with it. I'm walking down the street and you're over leaning against a lamppost bawling your eyes out. That frightens me and it makes me uncomfortable. And rather than walk up and put my arms around you and say, hey, it's going to be okay, I care, what's up, I'll go the other way and go, somebody should do something.
Sure.
Like that, or that man is being unmanly. He needs to compose himself and go somewhere private. He can't be, that's like going to the bathroom on a street corner. You shouldn't do that. Our culture conditions us to avoid the sharing of intense feelings. And so I think the question of is that positive psychology comes into play when you say, well, what do you do with those feelings? Can you get rid of them? The bad ones, the negative ones. But even perhaps intense joy, giddy, silly, happy joy is also embarrassing to be around. It's awkward to be around. It's like, well, I don't do that. That can grow up. What does that mean to be a grown-up? Somebody that can stifle and stuff and control their feelings so that they can screw the lid back on the pickle jar.
But I guess what I'm trying to figure out for myself when I read positive psychology stuff, and I want to be very clear. I'm not.
So the way I deal with that is I don't read it.
I'm not dissing positive psychology. That isn't my intent here. But what I'm saying is, what did Siegelman say that he said, oh, we need to change this? What does he consider negative psychology?
Focus on the positives, like happiness, joy, inspiration, love. Focus on things like gratitude, resilience, compassion, to train yourself to look for those things. Resilience. I've been beaten down. I've had some bad experiences. I've had some losses, but I'm still here. And tomorrow is another, like a Gone with the Wind, at the end of I'll never be hungry again. I'm resilient. I'll survive. I can make it through this. They won't beat me down. I won't give up. Joy, compassion. I'm sorry that you have had a loss. I'm sorry that you are suffering. Can I make contact with you in a way that you find supportive and helpful so that you feel better?
But I thought that was the focus of what we were doing when we were doing therapy.
Yeah, except that sometimes when people do therapy, my understanding is they really dig into all the nasty muck and guck and say, let's stay there, let's smell this, let's embrace this. I remember, and I'm blanking on the term, maybe it'll come to me as I talk about it, but back when multiple personality disorder, or dissociative identity disorder, was a bigger thing than it is today in the field, people would talk about having to go back and recover memories. And I talked to any number of clinicians that believed you have to go and uncover every horrible memory and process it individually. So if you were molested 53 times, you have to go back to 53 experiences and process each one of those. Where were you? What happened? Who was it? How'd you feel? I don't find that to be helpful. I don't think that's so. What was recommended by some theorists was you do shallow dips in and out. You put them in a hypnotic trance, you have them recover a memory, you pull them back out, feel it for a minute, and then pull them out. So you don't have to like stay in the room and smell the odor. You have to get in touch with all those feelings, then come back out and say, hey, I'm not there now. That's gone. That's over. I lived through that. But it stirs this up in me, fear, anxiety. What are the triggers? Well, that look in somebody's eye, that laugh in somebody's voice, that approach to somebody that I'm uncomfortable with that makes me feel unsafe. Well, what can we do about that? Well, can you learn to not have that be a trigger? Or can you learn to avoid that trigger? Don't go around those people if they set off your alarms. So then you process it in a positive direction of strength and power rather than the direction of victimization. So I think some therapists would focus too long, too much, too deep on the negatives. And I think positive psychology, as I understand it, says, as a global pattern, let's find the things in life that make us strong and give us positive options to reach toward. So that's the way I understand it.
So the two concepts, actually, you know what? Let's go to our break and we'll pick this up when we come back.
Okay.
If you like Psych with Mike, here's a couple of ways that you could really help us out. You could subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at Psych with Mike. But the two things that would really, really help us out is subscribing to us on YouTube, search Psych with Mike, but also going to Apple Podcasts and leaving us a review and a comment. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Okay, so the two concepts, as we were talking about before the break, that I think are intriguing to me, that I think have some, I don't want to say validity, because I'm not saying that anything's invalid, but that speak to me, were the concepts of flourishing and flow, which I think feels a little bit different to me than other branches of psychology that I've studied. In my doctoral program, I actually studied sports psychology. That's part of what my doctoral program was in. And this idea of flourishing and flow, it kind of feels to me like positive psychology is very simpatico with that, although no one ever labeled it positive psychology when I was in that program. And that feels a little bit different to me. Does that feel unique and different to you, or does it just feel like a rebranding?
I think it's a foundational understanding that if we encourage you to flourish and blossom, and we give you water and light, that you'll flourish. But if we spend our time obsessing about the negatives and the pains and the difficulties, then you internalize the script of, I'm a failure, I'm doomed, I don't have any good options here. And then you get a lot of people that are suicidal because they just don't see a way out.
Right. And I've always said to clients, you have either life-enhancing options or you have life-inhibiting options. And the choice of which one of those that you choose is yours. So that's the
flourishing flow.
Yeah, and that's, Well, so flow is like being in the zone. That's where it's kind of comes over into the sports psychology part of it. But the flourishing thing, that I feel like I have been a proponent of that. But again, I just don't know who wouldn't be. I don't know how you would practice psychotherapy and not be promoting those things. But then I hear what you're saying, and I think, if somebody is doing that, so what I would say is that if somebody wants to stay in those dark recesses, that's more about the therapist than it is about the client.
Well, I think it always is. I think the difference between us, you and I, is that you really struggle with these intellectual underpinnings and you want to figure out A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I don't. I look at the person in the room and I want to be in emotional contact supportively with that person, accurately supportively with that person. And then I want to find, does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? Can we not touch it? It's hot. We'll take your hand off of it. Can we help you learn how to have the power to choose and to resolve, be response able to the stimuli in your life and the occurrences in your life that are resulting in negative experiences? Can we help turn that around and make it positive? So if that's positive psychology, or if that's experimental psychology, or if that's experiential psychology, I don't care what you call it. I just want to help you get better. So my approach to it is less rigorously academic than yours.
So,
but I'm glad somebody does the work.
So if people promote themselves as positive psychologists, how do you conceptually identify that as different from what you and I do? Would you be able to do that?
I wouldn't even attempt to.
Okay.
My concern.
So you're not worried about the label?
No. If I'm making a referral,
and I make more out of that than you.
Yes, you
like.
Do. Yeah. Well, no. I mean, that's your choice.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, as long as I'm not bound by it.
Yes. You are certainly not.
Freedom to make my own choice. If I make a referral, I want to make a referral to somebody that I feel has really good skills and that I trust. You're not going to make this worse. You're going to be able to help this person. So I give your name to somebody, and I try to choose, like going to the grocery store and picking out different fruit. Do you want strawberries? Do you want grapes? Do you want some blackberries? I have a number of colleagues and friends that I make referrals to when somebody calls me and says, hey, I need to see somebody. And I said, well, tell me a little bit about your circumstance. Tell me what you're dealing with. Tell me who you're concerned about, whatever. And then I say, I think you'd be a good match with this person. And I've done that with you. I've given you any number of referrals. But I also have done it with other people and give them different referrals. So I'm trying to find a match that I think is simpatico.
Gotcha.
With somebody that does quality work.
So it's more about, so then is that more about, because it's not the philosophy that the person subscribes to, so it's more capacity. About so would you say is it personality, or is it, what is the defining characteristic that you're trying to match those people on?
Based on my understanding of the presenting person or issue.
Right.
What nest do I think is going to be best for what they need?
But is it so that they can relate to the therapist, or is it so that, I mean, what and maybe you've never thought about it in these terms?
I have thought about it. My understanding is if they don't relate to you, they won't go to you. So that's
what you're looking for. You
go to
feel
a couple
like
sessions. If you don't like them, go to somebody else. Call me back. I'll give you a different name. But you need to find somebody that you can take your mask off with.
Right.
And if you're not safe enough to do that, if you're just going to go shuck and jive, you're wasting your money and your time.
Exactly. And I think that when I make referrals, that's what I'm thinking about is this person going to relate?
Well, it's the same thing that comes up and says, I want a female therapist or I want a male therapist. And I'm like, that's a BS. That's a defense that protects you from the work you need to do. Spend some time with somebody. Feel like, is this a good match or not? Does this person see me? Am I safe enough here? And if you don't feel like it is, then go somewhere else.
Right. Now, if it's a safety issue and you don't feel comfortable with a male or you don't feel comfortable with a female, and there's a reason, then I think that it's good to try, because we all know good male and good female therapists.
Yeah. Well, we hope we do.
Well, we hope we do.
Yeah.
And so I would want to honor that just because that's a security issue, but I agree with you that I don't think that is the underlying definition of whether or not they're good or bad at their job.
Right.
Yeah. And you could have a male therapist that is actually better for you, because if your issues are oriented towards males that have treated you badly, then having a strong male who can honor and affirm you might actually be more therapeutic.
Well, and that's one theory. If you are in that condition of need, if you have a male therapist upon whom you can project your negative feelings and they don't re-abuse you, there's growth for you.
Right.
There's strength for you. But the trick then is, are they going to re-abuse you? Are they skilled enough not to do that? Are they able to, their ego parked at the door so that they can understand you're projecting a lot of garbage onto them that isn't really about them, but it's about the garbage that you have to get out of you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you know somebody that you trust to make that referral to, and someone can go and take that risk, they have a real chance to get better.
Right, and I would present that as a possibility, but obviously, if the person said, "Well, I would feel more comfortable," I just say, "Okay, yes, that's fine."
Just start the dance.
Yeah.
If you feel comfortable in the room, then we can make progress, whatever the issue is.
Right.
But it's one of the questions that a client needs to process, whether they actively ask themselves, intellectually, cognitively, what's going on here, or not, is that sense of safety, and parallelism. Am I going to be able to be? Do you think close enough to the way I think about the world that I can have a conversation with you and risk taking off some of my mask and revealing myself? Because if I don't feel that, I'm not ever going to take that risk. So, that's why. It's one of the reasons that the classically trained Freudian analyst was trained not ever to have a personality, to sit behind the client and not be a visible identity, so that they would free associate and project whatever was in them out onto the blank wall. And it was a very time-consuming, expensive process, because sometimes it would take years for people to get through all the BS to start dealing with what they really need to deal with. There are faster, quicker, briefer modalities that don't spend all the time doing that.
And I think that's
much more affordable for most people. It makes therapy more available to the masses.
Yeah, and I was going to say better. I don't know that I think it's better. I think it is, yes. I think it's
good
more
work,
effective.
It's good work.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. So, okay, coming back and putting a lid on the positive psychology, are we both, so this is, I'm going to say what I feel, and ask you if you agree with this. I feel like positive psychology is an idea that when you read it, you might get sparked into thinking, okay, yes, I might want to spend a little bit more time focusing on this, but I don't see it as a distinctly different kind of psychology like Freudian or Adlerian or existential or humanistic.
I don't have a problem with what you're saying. I think I probably agree with you.
Okay.
I'm stuck here because something flashed for me. I think positive affirmations absolutely must be genuine. One of my jobs is to reflect back to you qualities that I experience in you that I think are strengths that I am drawn to, that I think you could build on and should build on, but it must be real. I can't smell. You don't smell bad for somebody that works for a living. If you smell bad, I gotta say, we need to talk about your personal hygiene. If I find something genuine to reflect back to you that I experience, and I think that's one of my strengths as a therapist, I've been told that it is, and I believe it. I find an honest, positive interpretation of our discussion that I can feed back to you to say, well, yeah, all this is true and this is going on, but look at this, how you handle it. Look at this about you that's really good. We can build on that. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And I tell people all the time, when I give you a compliment, what you can absolutely take to the bank is that I mean that.
Yeah.
And I won't ever say, and you could say, oh, well, you're just saying that because I'm paying you to be nice to me.
Yeah, you're a paid friend.
And what I say is, you know what?
I'm not your friend.
I will never say anything harsh to you, I mean, unless it's necessary. But what I say to you is real and genuine. So if I didn't believe this, I wouldn't say this. I'd find something else to compliment you on. But whatever I'm complimenting you on, I guarantee you is because I genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely.
I think that's critical.
Because I think people can sense. I mean, they know when you're not being genuine.
People can, but also they're often trapped in scenarios and scripts that don't allow them to recognize
I was just going to say, but yes, right. But they might be, they might still come to you because they feel, well, he's a doctor and he knows so much more than me. And like they're supposed to keep doing it.
Well, it's what projection is about in therapy. They come and project onto you all the cues that you're then supposed to respond to by abusing them in ways they were abused. If you don't do that, that makes it it's a nonplussed kind of situation. Well, I'm uncomfortable here. I don't. You're not giving me the answer that.
Well, and that's right. That's the other side of the coin is how can you get better if you're not a little bit uncomfortable? So you have to walk that line between what is.
You have to point it out.
Yeah.
It feels to me like something's going on here. You just avoided this, or you just reacted this way. Am I reading that accurately? No, you're wrong. Okay, well, let's go on with the conversation then.
Right.
But you just keep offering it out there.
Keep coming back to the here and now.
Yeah, and the process. How are you experiencing me right now? How am I experiencing you? How accurate is that?
So hopefully that was good for people. And as always, the music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. We would love it if you would go to Apple Podcasts and give us a rating and leave us a comment. That is super helpful for the show. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.